Hey, what's going on, my people? Welcome back to Football Therapy with me, your host Jan. I hope you guys are doing well. I really do hope that. And welcome back to Chelsea News, the daily series here on Football Therapy, where I see what's being said about Chelsea in the headlines, giving you my opinion on it, but more importantly, asking for yours, mate. Couple of things I want to talk about today. BBC Sport acting as a platform for nonsense, if you ask me. Tuchel reportedly looking for a way out, so saith ex-Premier League player. Why the BBC would publish this on BBC Sport? I don't know. Also, Tammy Abraham has been talking about a potential return to the Premier League. Could Chelsea be looking to get their boy back, activating the buyback clause for Tammy Abraham? Or is he off to Arsenal? Settle in, get comfortable. Do consider subscribing to this channel if you're yet to do so. And if you choose to do so, please hit that all-important bell notifications icon, and I'm thankful to all of you friends who drop a like on this video, because it does help me out, mate. It really does. It does. Alright then, let's get into it. We're going to start off with this BBC Sport article, and then we're going to move on and talk about strikers and Tammy Abraham's comments about a potential return. Make sure you stick around to the end to get in all the interesting information and my reaction to it as we go. Cool, so starting off with BBC Sport publishing an article titled Tuchel looking for a way out, which of course is going to get some people's attention. Former Premier League midfielder Nigel Reo-Coker believes, and pause. Sources? No. A belief of a former West Ham player, BBC Sport. Quote, there's a lot more going on at Chelsea, end quote, after the Blues slumped to a heavy home defeat by Brentford. Mate, it was after the international break. We had loads of players out playing in said international break, and we didn't actually play that badly. We lost 4-1, but I think the XG were about a goal behind. It was one of those days, but of course, forget completely how Chelsea have won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 on the bounce in the Premier League. Loads of games, every game last month in every competition. Crisis. Chelsea crisis. Chelsea's run of 6 straight wins was brought to an abrupt end by the Bees, and Reo-Coker thinks the activity around the club is starting to take an effect. Quote, we could say they're professional footballers, but the things that are going on outside Chelsea are getting into the dressing room, he told BBC Radio 5 Live's Football Daily podcast. If you read between the lines of what Thomas Tuchel is saying, he's looking for a way out. He's backing the fans in protests against the Rickett families. And when a manager does that, it's a way of saying they're available. Against Brentford, they weren't even doing the basics right. They looked all over the place. And pause. What? Tuchel coming out and backing the fans against protesting against potential racist owners, talking about inequality and protecting the club, saying, yes, you know, like, I endorse positivity. Oh, that means I want to go now. Give me the Manchester United job because it looks wicked over there. What is happening? Look, this is obviously nonsense from an ex-player who probably doesn't like Chelsea. My problem with this is, it's BBC Sport have given him a platform and like, we're going to make an article out of this. Look, I'm of course talking about it, but I am not a news source. I am a, I suppose, commentary channel to the news headlines. And yes, I'll try and avoid The Sun and stuff like that in the Daily Mail. It does pop up every now and again, but one publication that generally I'll always react to is BBC Sport. And I am doing so today, but with the caveat of this is effing nonsense. So yeah, now we've read through that crap. Let's move on and talk about Tammy Abraham. Of course, Tammy is doing bits out in Serie A, playing for Jose Mourinho's Roma. The fans absolutely adore him. Remember though, Chelsea manager Thomas Tuchel didn't really fancy him at all. Chelsea sold him for about 40 million euros, which is a massive sale to Roma in terms of how much they're spending on him. And they feel like they've absolutely got their money's worth. Chelsea have a buyback clause for about 67 million pounds that gets active next summer. Let's find out what this article is saying. Which, by the way, I should reference, it's football.london, written by a guy called Daniel Orme. Tammy Abraham drops huge hint over 67 million pound Chelsea return, as Arsenal also monitor the star. Former Former Chelsea striker Tammy Abraham has handed encouragement to the Blues over a potential move back to Stamford Bridge, having hinted he is eyeing a return to the Premier League at some point in the future. The English forward only just departed West London in the summer, and he joined the Italian outfit Roma for £34 million. Abraham has found some excellent form in the Italian capital, hitting 23 goals in 41 outings. Pause. Yes, good. Caveat. Lots in the Europa League conference, which is a low level of football. He's still quite a young striker, goals are good, debut season, new language, new culture, so being in that team and scoring goals generally is good. It's good, right? In all competitions. The best goal-scoring top-flight season of his career thus far. The 24-year-old's displays are slightly more difficult for Chelsea to stomach, considering Romelu Lukaku and Timo Werner's inconsistent displays at Stamford Bridge so far this term. So yeah, after we reference this article, we'll talk about strikers and is this what we want? Just wait for it. Despite that, Abraham could potentially be back in West London at some point in the future, with Chelsea having slotted a buyback clause into the deal that originally took him to the Stadio Olimpico. The clause reportedly comes active in the summer of 23 for a fee of €80 million, £67 million. Basically, double what Chelsea sold him for. Premier League rivals Arsenal will be hoping that the Blues do not choose to follow through with that clause, having been linked with a move for the striker. Abraham himself has now essayed to a potential Premier League return and has suggested that he could be back, albeit he is currently focused on his task at hand with Roma. Speaking to TalkSport, Tammy Abraham said, quote, "It's all over the place at the moment. Who knows what the future holds? Of course, I grew up in England, I'm a London boy, so maybe one day I'll be back in the Premier League to make noise there. But for right now, it's about focusing in Rome. It's about focusing on doing what I can do best, and hopefully I can win these guys a trophy, which they haven't won in many years." Abraham's still over 4 years left to run on his current contract, and whilst he has sparkled for Jose Mourinho's men, the former Chelsea boss has urged the striker to improve. He said, "When you say Abraham is fantastic, I disagree. He can do even more. I demand a lot of him because I know his potential. I'm not talking about just goals, but he must play every game with this attitude." Some good, positive, generic managerial talk there from Jose Mourinho about his number 9 in Tammy Abraham. Look, man, I get it. It's exciting. Tammy's doing well. He's scoring goals. Yet another Cobham Academy graduate out there in Europe doing bits, Fikayo Tomori and loads of... The Premier League is riddled with Chelsea Cobham graduates. Now, the optics of this are Chelsea have 2 expensive strikers and they're Chelsea's 2 highest earners in Romelu Lukaku and Timo Werner. They don't score goals. Lukaku generally, not because he's missing chances, but because he doesn't fit the system, and Timo Werner because he's missing chances. So they've got it covered between them. Tammy Abraham's gone to a new team and he's steadily across all competitions scoring 1 and 2, which is a good elite striker return. And considering, yes, he's doing it in Serie A, Romelu Lukaku scored like 65 goals in 2 seasons in Italy, like an insane return. That made him cost £97 million for Chelsea. So we don't want to get too excited. But then again, Tammy Abraham did score 15 non-penalty goals in his debut season for Chelsea under Frank Lampard. 15 non-penalty goals. So if he scored like 3 or if he was on penalties and say scored 3 or 4, he could have pushed to 20 Premier League goals in his debut season, which would have been elite. People did have criticism with Tammy though. Remember, he wasn't just some gunman who scored loads of goals. He had problems. He got tangled sometimes. His, positioning wasn't always great. His touch wasn't always great. And indeed, Thomas Tuchel, the current Chelsea manager, didn't really fancy him at all. He looked to play Werner, looked to play Giroud in front of him. He really didn't fancy Tammy Abraham. In fact, there was probably the biggest criticism of Thomas Tuchel in his first 6 months at Chelsea. A lot of people thought he's a magical manager, great diplomat, great speaker, great everything, but he really just didn't fancy Tammy Abraham. And maybe that's fine looking at his player profile behind the scenes, but it just felt like he didn't give him the chance, really, on the pitch. Now, hopefully Thomas Tuchel stays and we don't believe that silly article from BBC Sport, so you can't imagine he'll be thinking, oh, you know what, we've got £70 million to spend. Activate the buyback clause of the player I sold. Do you know what I mean? I personally, provided Thomas Tuchel stays, I don't think that's going to happen. Do you? But what's your thoughts? Maybe, 15 non-penalty goals 3 years ago, bit more development, going off to play in Italy, score a bunch of goals. Would that be a perfect opportunity to bring him back and play more? What are the elite striker? I don't think Tammy Abraham's an elite striker. Maybe he becomes second to Harry Kane, plays more, scores goals for England. If Harry Kane gets ill or something, is unable to play, if he starts for England, that would be great for him. But I don't know, I personally feel like he's got a little way to go for us to even consider that. I know he's got a huge fan base, Tammy Abraham, and rightly so. He's a good guy and he's a Chelsea boy, even though I think he grew up supporting Arsenal. Let me know what you think. Comment down below. Let's start up the conversation down in the comment section, and let's go from there. Thank you for joining me today. Please do consider dropping a like, and you are all welcome to subscribe, of course. We are closing in on 150k. You can be the difference by subscribing. Alright mate, enjoy the football. Peace.
You ain't so tough with that bad boy tuck. I'ma get it how I'm living, I'ma walk the walk. Outline my lines, I rap through thought. Body bag the verse, outlined in chalk. In my life seen trouble, hustle on the double. Silence on the trigger like my pick got a muzzle. Yo chick like to guzzle, bad boy stay in trouble. I only love this paper, sorry I don't. I laugh me baby.